A model toolkit on disaster training and planning being developed. Prime Minister Skerrit speaks on his government's foreign policy stance, and President Williams visits Chance's place of safety. Hello and welcome to National Focus. I'm Jarna Hector. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Tarnia Green. Stay with us as we bring you the details of these and other stories when National Focus returns.
You're watching GIS.
Welcome back. A friend to all foreign policy adopted by the Roosevelt-Skerrit-led administration is a good move which will be intensified in 2013. Minister for Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt-Skerrit made that disclosure during an end-of-year interview with GIS's Mervyn Paul late last month. Honorable Skerrit gave a practical definition of foreign policy.
One has to look at foreign policy the same way you view yourself as a human being, as a resident in a community. If you live in a village and you vex with everybody, I mean, if your house is on fire, it is likely that nobody will come to your rescue. You understand? But if you're surrounded by friends, anything that happens to your house or to your family, these people will be the first to come forward. But there has to be reciprocity. You can't want everybody to be your friend and expect certain assistance from people. And then when it comes for you to play a part, so if there is a cleaning of the drain in the community, you say, well, you're out of that. Because the drain is lower, your house, so it's not going to affect you. But it will affect 5, 6 friends along the road, people who have helped you in the past. So we have to look at foreign policy in the same way we cultivate, and the same way we create, and the same way we maintain our friendships with individuals and with family members. That's how we see it. There has to be sincerity. There has to be mutual respect.
Honorable Skerrit explained that it's important for countries, regardless of size and economy, to cultivate friendships.
In this present climate of great difficulty, it's important to our friends. Friends you can call to say, look, I have a challenge, I need some assistance to do this particular project and program, and they'll be more than willing to help. This week, as you realized, last week, we signed another economic and cooperation agreement with the Chinese government to the tune of 70 million renminbi. The Minister of National Security will sign one something this week for 8 million renminbi for national security. You understand? And they've indicated to me that they're making great strides in the design of the new hospital that will begin in 2013. You understand? So we continue to cultivate good friends with Venezuela through the ALBA and the Petro-Caribbean arrangements. The United States with regards to security. We have excellent cooperation with regards to the United States in terms of security and the assistance there. And what people want is friendship. So if something happens, they need help at the UN or WHO. They may have a candidate or something that they can come to you.
Prime Minister Skerrit, who is also Minister for Finance, emphasized that foreign policy is not necessarily about receiving gifts, but is based primarily on friendly support. A prime example, according to Honorable Skerrit, is Dr. Carissa Etienne's recent ascension to the post of Director General of the Pan-American Health Organization, or PAHO.
When you look at Dr. Carissa Etienne and the Pan-American Health Organization, and that organization includes the United Kingdom because of its member states, includes France because of its member states, includes the Dutch because of the member states within the Caribbean region, the United States of America, Canada, Brazil, and all the Latin, South, and Central American countries, and all the Caribbean countries of CARICOM. You understand? So in a sense, it is technically larger than the OAS. And Dominica was able to be triumphant over Costa Rica. And our understanding was that the Costa Rican candidate had the full backing of the Treasury of Costa Rica in terms of making resources available, to the point where they even engaged Caribbean nationals to lobby for them in the Caribbean, including people from the University of the West Indies, who were going around lobbying the governments, seeking to get Caribbean governments to vote in favor of the Costa Rican government.
The nation's leader revealed that in addition to support from the Caribbean community, Latin America was also on board with Dominica's efforts.
Setting aside the support from CARICOM, one has to appreciate the kind of support we receive from the Latin American countries. Though 5, 6, 7 years ago, that would have been unheard of. If Dr. Karasetian had thought about 5, 6 years ago, I'm not going to go 10, 15 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, even under our administration, that she would have thought about wanting to be the candidate. He would tell her no. And even now, even when she was thinking about it and she consulted people, they tell her it doesn't make sense. You won't get there. You can't go. There's no way you as Dominican can win that. Because yes, it has to do with qualifications, but it has to do with voting. You understand? People have to vote. Countries have to vote, and one vote to a country. And we did not only beat the Costa Rican, we beat them in the two rungs. Ecuador, Uruguay pulled out. You understand? These are the countries we came up against. And we came up against a former Minister for Health of Costa Rica, a former Minister of Health of Ecuador, a former Minister of Health of Uruguay. These are the people we came up against. So these people already had political contacts in those countries because of the exchanges with their colleague ministers of health in those regions.
As a result of friendly relationships with many Latin American countries, Dominica was supported in its nominee's bid for directorship of PAHO.
We were able to lobby these countries I never made any specific trip to any of these capitals seeking the support of the governments. By simply sending a letter, by simply making a telephone call, for example, to the president of Uruguay, making calls to people who I know personally or who know me personally, and sending Minister for Health in 4 or 5 specific countries. We were able to win, you understand? And countries like Chile and Mexico, very early on, raised their hand and said, we shall support Dominica. And Mexico, for example, did not only support Dominica by voting, it provided resources, it made available its embassies and ambassadors in the various countries, and placed it at our disposal. And say, anytime you want to go to any country, we will make our embassies available to Dominica to facilitate any and all trips. And that was done in 5 or 6 other countries where the Minister for Health went. We were accompanied by Mexican officials.
Honorable Skerrit believes mutual respect and friendly relations with regional countries came into play in August 2011 with the appointment of Dominican Erwin LaRocque as the 7th Secretary General of CARICOM.
And with regards to Ambassador LaRocque, I mean, the only person who had held a regional post from Dominica was, I believe, Swinburne Lestrade at the OECS level. Now, this is CARICOM, and normally the head of CARICOM would be from the larger country. And it is through negotiations, it's through dialogue, it's through discussions with a number of the countries, we were able to get Ambassador LaRocque appointed Secretary General. So these are 2 very important positions, and I think it reflects on the respect and admiration which member states across the world have for Dominica.
With regards to Dominica's a friend to all foreign policy, Prime Minister Skerrit affirmed that it continues in 2013.
We'll continue pressing on. In the new year, you will hear of new frontiers that will be leading in the Caribbean in regards to go into new areas of cooperation with new countries. And that will be done in 2013.
In more news, the Office of Disaster Management, or ODM, is working on developing a community disaster preparedness training and planning toolkit, which will be used by Dominica and other Caribbean states. On Monday, the ODM, in collaboration with the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SIDEMA, began a 2-day workshop to develop the toolkit. Acting National Disaster Coordinator Don Corriott says the toolkit will contain the tools needed to assist communities in developing effective community disaster preparedness programs in the region.
This workshop is timely as we together try to build community resilience. And that workshop, at the end of which we hope to develop a toolkit that will guide us and give us the framework as to how to go about, most definitely with your input, because you are the ones on the ground, how we go about tailoring and establishing a model that will give us some consistency in our programs going forward.
The Office of Disaster Management here is receiving support in this effort from the SIDEMA Coordinating Unit through its Disaster Risk Management Sub-Regional Program ACP EU project. Velda Joseph, Community Disaster Planning Specialist of the SIDEMA Barbados office, is in Dominica, providing support to the initiative. She noted that the region continues to be plagued by disasters, and it's imperative to develop effective programs to combat them.
The Caribbean is one of the most hazard-prone in the world. You have a lot of hazards that you are faced with, both natural and man-made, and these include floods, landslides, earthquakes, and I don't need to go on because you know them and you're very familiar with them in Dominica. We are also familiar with the losses that we incur as a result of these hazards, and the pain and the devastation that our people suffer as a result. Can we allow that to continue and possibly to worsen as it has been projected?
Ms. Joseph says there is need to reverse this trend. She says to do so, there needs to be continued investments in disaster risk reduction, hence the importance of this undertaking.
If we are to retard the epidemic of hazard-related losses we have experienced over the last decade, continuous investment in disaster risk reduction at the community level and at the national level as well as the regional level is imperative. Building the resiliency of our communities and nations to withstand and to recover from adversity is extremely critical, and it must become and remain a priority.
Jamaican consultant Dr. Balfour Spence will serve as the lead facilitator at this week's workshop. During the 2 days, Dr. Spence will review existing relevant documentation on community-level training and preparedness programs with the view of establishing the model toolkit. The toolkit will be used to train people at the community level on disaster risk reduction. The toolkit, once finalized, will replace a training manual which was developed by SIDEMA in the 1980s, which has been deemed no longer relevant.
In other news, Dominica's head of state, President Eliud Williams, along with his wife, made his first official visit to the Chances Place of Safety in Jimit last Friday. Both staff and residents at Chances were excited to welcome Dominica's president to their establishment. Managing Director at Chances, Ava McIntyre Roach, gave an overview of the purpose of the home.
Chances is a home for children who have been abused, abandoned, neglected, children at risk, children in need of care and protection. The highest number of children we have ever had at any one time has been 18. But as this is a home where they're supposed to stay probably about 6 months. And during that time, you look for a foster home, or they go back to their biological parents, or some of them are adopted. We do have some children who are here a little over a year. All right, as a matter of fact, we have one person who has been here from inception, okay? But finally, we did find a home for him, so he'll soon be moving. At Chances, we cater for the total development, everything up for the child. They go to school like they would be at a home. Their medical needs are met. They can belong to youth groups, youth organizations, just like any other child. And I must say, we do have a very good bunch of children at Chances.
His Excellency the President explained the thinking behind the visit.
It's wonderful to be here. As I said, I came in 2 weeks ago purely accidentally. And then it occurred to me that we had not included chances during our Christmas visit. So I thought, well, we're going to make up for that as soon as we can, and we wanted to do that in the new year. So your managing director, Mrs. Roach, agreed that we should come very early, since come Monday, some of you would be going to school. So it's wonderful. It's great to know that they're being taken care of.
President Williams thanked staff for their selfless work.
It is really very important work you members of the staff are doing. You're doing work really where the pay will never be able to adequately compensate for the kind of effort, the dedication that will be required of you. But it is work that is good work. It is work that the community appreciates. It is work that you're doing because you are taking care of those who are in great need. Thank you on behalf of the Office of the President and the government for the work you're doing here.
The President invited questions and discussion from the youth, following which he handed over a donation of supplies to the home. His Excellency and Mrs. Williams were subsequently taken on a tour of the institution. Chance's Place of Safety, which has a resident capacity of 30, officially opened in April 2011. It is currently home to 18 youths ages 1 to 14 years.
A sign language club has been instituted at the Convent High School. Last week, 40 students of that school were officially inducted into the school's sign language club, which was established last September. Sign language is used primarily by deaf people, but it also involves simple forms of speech and facial expressions. Being a member of the school's sign language club enables students to understand and communicate in sign language with some efficiency. Director of the Convent High School Sign Language Club is Leandra Lander. Ms. Lander, who initiated the program at the school, is encouraged by the number of students who have shown interest in the club.
The Sign Language Club is new. It began in September of this school year, and basically I graduated from the University of the West Indies, and while there I became very interested in sign language. Now at this point I'm no pro, however I felt I had enough to go on to assist students here at the school, and today we have 40 enthusiastic students, and we only have 40 because any bigger number wouldn't be manageable. But I remember when we introduced the concept to the school, I mean, we had an overwhelming turnout of students who wanted to be a part of it.
Ms. Lander is hoping that through this club, the importance of sign language will be enhanced.
I hope that sign language can become a more popular art form, a more popular form of communication, because these are some of the people in our society that are often neglected. And so if they learn a proper sign language vocabulary, corporate grammar and so forth, we can definitely see bigger things in Dominica in terms of taking care of the persons who are disabled in that sense of the word. So I am really happy, as I said, and I hope that as we progress through the school year, the students will become more excited and committed to the task.
A speech choral club was also launched simultaneously with the Sign Language Club. 2 students, Kyra Richards and Mia Andrews, were awarded for excellence in both clubs.
2 students were awarded as the ultimate excellent students in each club. For the speech choral, it was Mia Andrew. Mia is one of the students who is most outstanding in terms of her deportment, her behavior, and even the way she performs. And for the Sign Language Club, a new club, with Kyra Richards topped that group. And Kyra has shown to be an initiator, very disciplined, very kind, and her deportment and behavior is much to be applauded. And so every year we hope to keep awarding students for their work.
The Convent High School is the first high school in Dominica to have a sign language club.
In more news, Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit is proud of the achievements that Dominica has made in the health sector. Speaking at an end-of-year interview with GIS's Mervyn Paul, the nation's leader confirmed that healthcare is of primary importance to his administration, since it's one of those sectors directly affecting every Dominican. In that regard, the Prime Minister says his government has expanded the healthcare system to employ more nurses.
We have trained nurses, a number of them. We've created over 100 positions around 2010 for nurses. We're getting to appoint them. We continue to train people. We continue to have nurses specialize in various particular disciplines. We've moved to giving nurses bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, and they're back at the hospital working in various fields. Young people.
The number of doctors employed in the public service has also increased. In fact, a record-breaking number of doctors are currently functioning on the island.
We have more doctors employed in this state than any time in the history of Dominica. I was totally amazed to see the number of, looking at the report yesterday from the Ministry of Health, the number of doctors that are employed in the public service. As a matter of fact, we're now looking at having 2 doctors in Grand Bay, 2 in Portsmouth, and 2 in Marigot rather than one, because of the demands for primary healthcare services in those districts.
Prime Minister Skerrit made special mention of another noteworthy achievement that means less out-of-pocket expenditure for dialysis patients.
In terms of resources, in terms of medical equipment and so forth, we've made tremendous strides, The dialysis units coming from no dialysis to 1 to 2 to 9 and 10, you see, at a reduced cost to the patient.
In light of those advancements, the country's leader deems the new hospital an absolute necessity.
We cannot get to the optimum and to the apex with the present state of the facilities at the PMH. I mean, clearly, in the second decade of the 21st century, that structure cannot be our premier place to provide secondary and tertiary medical care. I mean, so no matter the best efforts of the doctors and nurses, you need to have a modern facility to complement the modern equipment you have, you see, and the training that the doctors are receiving to be able to provide the kind of care we like to provide to our citizens. And come 2013, God's willing, that hospital shall commence, and it will address once and for all the structural and infrastructural challenges which we have in respect to the facilities at the PMH.
The Office of Disaster Management has confirmed that community resilience will continue to be a key strategy in reducing the impacts of natural disasters in Dominica. In 2009, Dominica partnered with the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CIDEMA, to implement a disaster risk program under an ACP EU project. The project targets interventions at both the national and community levels. Visiting CIDEMA official Velda Joseph says the community of Bioche has been benefiting from this program.
Bioche in Dominica was selected to benefit under the community level, and a number of activities have been undertaken as it relates to the development of a vulnerability assessment as well as a community profile for that area. We also looked at the emergency communications, assessed the emergency communications arrangements in Bioche and how these operate. We sought to provide equipment to the Bioche community, and I'm pleased to say that Bioche has received all of the equipment, or Dominica has received all of the equipment that was earmarked for Bioche. Yolan, you will get it soon if it's not there yet. We identified a disaster risk reduction project at the community level, and we are pleased to note that the construction of the evacuation route is progressing very nicely in Bioche. I need to say that we had earmarked initially $55,000 US for that project, but that project has now cost us in excess of 200,000 EC dollars, and we were able to find the funds because Dominica was really committed to pushing the project forward.
A number of capacity building initiatives were also undertaken in Bioche in areas such as first aid and CPR, search and rescue, emergency communications, and fire prevention and safety.
Finally, this news time, Sunday, January 6th, marked the 9th anniversary of the death of former Prime Minister of Dominica, the late Honorable Pierre Charles. Mr. Charles, who served as Dominica's Prime Minister from 2000 to 2004, was Member of Parliament for Grand Bay constituency from 1985 until his death in 2004. The former Prime Minister, who hailed from Grand Bay in 1979 at the age of 25, was appointed a senator in Parliament. In 1985, he contested the general elections on a Dominica Labour Party ticket and won, and remained the parliamentary representative of that constituency for 15 years. He rose to the leadership of the ruling party and consequently the leader of the country upon the death of Prime Minister Rosie Douglas in October 2001. The late Pierre Charles is survived by his wife, Honorable Justina Charles, who serves as Minister for Youth, Sports and Culture, and their 2 children. Honorable Charles will always be remembered as a leader who took decisive action on the economy. My co-anchor Tarnia Green has more information on those decisive actions.
Yes, Jarna, we're reflecting on the work of the former Prime Minister of Dominica, the Honorable Pierre Charles. It's 9 years since his passing. And we all recall that during his time as Prime Minister, he took some very decisive actions in terms of the economy. You would appreciate that at that time, we're talking about an economic crisis. And Dominica, obviously, as a small island developing country, had to take some serious measures to make sure that we remained in check. So therefore, he implemented some very unpopular measures in the face of the economic situation. He turned to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, for assistance, and he implemented the stabilization program, the much talked about stabilization program at that time. And I recall vividly that it wasn't a decision that was well received by a lot of persons, because persons were concerned that, you know, we were going to be talking about increasing in taxes and decreased public spending. So obviously this was met by some criticism from the public. But today, when we look back on the global economic situation and we look at how some of these countries in the Caribbean are coping, we have to say that we appreciate. Yes. We have to commend the former Prime Minister for the decisive actions that he took back then. Because were it not for those decisions, then Dominica obviously would not be able to fare out the way it has been in recent times.
Well said, Tanya. Very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's news. Find out why you should use coconut oil as a daily hair moisturizer in our upcoming tip of the day. Today, our tip is about coconut oil's ability to promote hair growth. Coconut oil has a high moisture retaining capacity since it's very stable. It is not broken down easily, neither does it evaporate quickly. Rather, it prevents moisture from escaping, thus keeping the hair moisturized and soft, which prevents breakage of hair. Coconut oil is a far better conditioner for hair than any synthetic one available in the market.
To reap the full benefits of coconut oil in your hair, use for styling, since it melts on the heating and then condenses on cooling. When you apply it on hair, it thins and spreads evenly due to heat of the scalp. Soon afterwards, as the hair comes in contact with air, the oil on the hair condenses on cooling, keeping your hair moistened, styled, and enriched.
Good point. And that's National Focus. We welcome your suggestions and comments. Please feel free to drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website at news.gov.dm.
Or you could friend us on Facebook.com or GIS News, and be sure to like us on our Facebook page. Catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube page. On behalf of the entire news production team, I'm your presenter, Tanya Green.
And I'm Jarna Hector. Thank you so much for watching.